What's going on, people? Derek J407 here to give you my thoughts on New Japan Pro Wrestling's Wrestle Kingdom show live from the Tokyo Dome here on January 4th, 2019. My first pay-per-view review of the year. Of course, that honor has been bestowed upon New Japan for the last few years. I think the last 4 years I've reviewed these shows. And for the last I've watched them for the last 5 years, but for the last 4 years I've reviewed them. And every single year they just seem to get better and better, with just some of the best matches you'll see, especially on this show. The last two matches in particular were just two incredible matches. There was a great opening match. There was a lot of good stuff in between there too. And for the first time I can remember, all championships, every single championship defended on this show changed hands. There were 8 title defenses, and all 8 of them are in the hands of new owners. So definitely a very newsworthy show, and it definitely gives a clear, at least a clearer direction on the future of not only New Japan Pro Wrestling, but the pro wrestling world in 2019 in general, in many cases. And of course, we'll get to that. First off, before I get into the review, I want to send my condolences out to the family of Hall of Famer Mean Gene Okerlund, one of the most prolific, important voices in pro wrestling history, mainly in WWE, of course, but you know, his voice has been heard in many different wrestling companies, the AWA, WCW, several of them. He was the best at exactly what he did, and there is no one who compares, and no one who really ever will compare, in my opinion. So I just wanted to send my condolences out to his family who are grieving at this time, and just rest in peace, Mean Gene. So with that said, let's go ahead and get into this show. So the pre-show started at 2 a.m. Eastern time where I'm at, so I kind of went to bed a little early and then set my alarm to wake up around 1:30 or something like that. So yeah, I got to watch this pre-show match, and it was a 6-man tag team gauntlet match with the winner facing the 6-man tag team NEVER Openweight champions on the New Year's Dash show. So the first two teams to start out were Jeff Cobb, Yuji Nagata, and Dave Finlay up against Hangman Page, Marty Scurll, and Yujiro Takahashi. And the Elite guys, they were the first ones out pretty quickly. So not surprising that they would be gone, but it was just so surprising that they were gone so soon. So that was that. The other teams in this match were Hiroki Goto, Beretta, and Chucky T. Members of Suzuki-gun, of course, Minoru Suzuki himself, along with Lance Archer and Davey Boy Smith. And then the final team in were Togi Makabe, Toru Yano, and Taguchi. And in the end, it was Yano with a double low blow on Davey Boy Smith and Lance Archer, and a roll-up on Davey Boy to get the win for his team. So I did not see that coming, but yeah, I can see that, I guess. So they will be facing I guess Bad Luck Fale, Tama Tonga, and Tangaloa on the New Year's Dash show. So that should be interesting what happens there. Also on this pre-show, they made 3 big announcements in terms of future shows for New Japan. One of them was that they will be having a show in London this year on August 31st. So they're going to London for, I think, the first time. There will the G1 Climax. It will be kicked off at the American Airlines Center in Dallas, Texas this year, and next year, around Wrestle Kingdom time next year, they will be having 2 nights at the Tokyo Dome. It's usually just the January 4th show, but they announced that next year in 2020 on January 4th and 5th, they will both nights will take place in the Tokyo Dome. So huge news for New Japan. The London show, and of course starting the G1 in Dallas, so that just furthers their expansion. And of course, the 2 nights in Tokyo Dome, that's going to be incredible. So, yeah, great stuff. I believe they announced over 40,000 people that were in attendance for this show, so that's an incredible number. I think it's the highest attendance figure for a Wrestle Kingdom show, so bravo to them. Now on to the main stuff here. The opening match was for the NEVER Openweight Championship. Kota Ibushi defending his championship against Will Osprey. A dream match for a lot of people, myself included. I was really looking forward to this match. And hearing that it was going to be the opener, I was even more hyped for it, and they did not disappoint. This was an incredible match. All the high-flying stuff, the flips, the dive, all of that great stuff that you can think of happened very early on. At one point, Osprey did like a somersault in the ring into a moonsault over the top onto Ibushi. A little later on, Ibushi hit a corkscrew moonsault onto Osprey on the outside. So all that stuff was great, and there were more crazy moves like that, but there were also a lot of really great counters in this match. At one point, there was like this really cool sequence where they were countering power bombs and a bunch of other different moves. Then Ibushi went for a kick, and then Osprey turned into a Spanish fly, so I thought that was really cool. Ibushi was up on the top, and he got kind of knocked down and was basically hanging upside down up there, and then Osprey kind of sat Indian style across from him, and or legs crossed, shouldn't say Indian style. He sat legs crossed and just started slapping him. Then Ibushi started slapping back, and they just started slapping each other. At one point there was a attempt at a German suplex over the top rope. Ibushi was in the ring, Osprey was outside on the apron. Ibushi tried to German suplex him from out there to inside the ring, but of course Osprey rolled through, and there was this really good shot of Osprey looking back, and the camera's focused on Ibushi, and he's looking back. They did that not too long ago in a tag team match, so I thought that was really cool. The finishing sequence though, Ibushi was sitting upright in the middle of the ring, had his back turned to Osprey, and Osprey just held back and went forward and lunged at him with this, what I call a falcon elbow. He like just lunged at him with an elbow shot right to the back of the head. It looked brutal. It looked brutal. It looked like Kota Ibushi was knocked out, and at that point, Osprey hit his Stormbreaker move and got the win. So the first championship to change hands on the show, they stretchered out Kota Ibushi, put him in the neck brace and a stretcher and all that kind of stuff, and he did not come out in the corner of Kenny Omega in the main event. So, and they made mention of that in the main event, so I don't know if that's going to play into things or not. I'm not sure. We'll see on the New Year's Dash show. But yeah, an incredible opener. Just a sick finish. Not sure how much of that was really selling and how much of that was real in terms of Ibushi. That elbow shot looked brutal, but yeah, it definitely exceeded my expectations. Go out of your way to watch this match. This was incredible. The next match was for the IWGP Junior Heavyweight Tag Team Championships. Suzuki-gun, represented by Kanemaru and El Desperado, taking on Roppongi 3K, represented by Sho and Yo, and members of the LIJ, the Los Ingobernables, of course, Bushi and Shingo Takagi. And this was a really fun match. Just too much action to call. A lot of stuff all over the place. Sho was putting on a little performance there, kicking out a lot of big moves, but after just a lot of insanity. Sorry, I can't bullet point everything that happened in this match, but this is just one of those matches that was just too crazy for me to go through every single thing that happened. But in the end, it was Shingo who hit his last dragon move on Sho to get the win. So he and Bushi are the new tag team champions. They take him away from of course, Suzuki-gun. So the second titles to change hands on this show. Next up, we had the first ever defense of the Rev Pro British Heavyweight Championship on a Wrestle Kingdom show. it was Tomohiro Ishii, the champion, defending against the one of the best British wrestlers out there, Zack Sabre Jr. This was a pretty good match. I probably expected a little more from these guys, but I wasn't really all that disappointed. Early on, Sabre was targeting Ishii's arm and shoulder. He was doing the submission, but he didn't really lock it in. He just kind of rolled through, and the way he was positioned, he managed to stomp on Ishii's arm and shoulder. It looked sick. And then from there, he just was working over that arm. Ishii, he showed his toughness and all that kind of stuff. Sabre tried to give him, a bunch of kicks to the chest and all that kind of stuff, and Ishii was just kind of egging him on. He hit one brutal chop, and Sabre just kind of went down for a little bit. But yeah, they started to kind of stiff each other a little bit for a little while longer until Sabre managed to lock in a octopus submission hold. He had it on pretty good, but then he kind of really locked it in, really cinched it in pretty tight, was really stretching Ishii back. It just looked so painful. And he kind of gave the nod to the referee that he was done, and that was it. So Sabre, of course, is the new Rev Pro British champion. And like he said at the press conference the previous night, he's gonna, go end Brexit and do all this other crazy stuff now that he won. So we'll see if he lives up to his word. But yeah, probably expected a little more from this match, but not disappointed. Really good stuff. Next up was for the IWGP Heavyweight Tag Team Championships. The champions, the Gorillas of Destiny, representatives of the Bullet Club. Good guy Tama Tonga, no longer bad guy. He had, since the new year, he has established himself as the good guy. So good guy Tama Tonga, and of course Tonga Loa, taking on members of the LIJ, Evil and Sanada, and of course Matt and Nick Jackson, the Young Bucks, in what is most likely their last appearance for New Japan. In fact, I think it is their last appearance for New Japan, and you could tell. So we saw a little bit of a good guy Tama Tonga, like I mentioned. He was trying to shake people's hands early on before any of the action started. A little bit later, Matt had a submission hold on Evil, and Tonga Loa tried to come in and hit Matt or try to kick him to break the hold, but Tama stepped in, tried to stop him, like, hey, don't do that. We're good guys now. And they went out to the ring on the other side and kind of encouraged Evil to get to the rope to break the hold, and I think he did. So, good guy Tama Tonga is working right now. Of course, no one buys it, but it's very entertaining to watch. Sanada had his own little highlight moment in this match. Of course, a lot of eyes are being placed on Sanada as we're going forward into the future with New Japan. A lot of people have a lot of high expectations for Sanada to be one of the guys to kind of be at the top of the future for New Japan, and I think he could definitely be that. He is fucking incredible, and he showed a lot of great stuff in this match. There was one crazy, obligatory, of course, Tower of Doom spot where everyone does, this huge slam, suplexes and power bombs and all that kind of stuff. One member left who didn't really go down was up top, and that was Nick Jackson, who hit a 450 off the top onto Sanada. So I thought that was cool. It kind of modified it a little bit. Instead of everyone being down, there was at least one person still left. Jado, he was out there at ringside. He got a kendo stick. He was about to use it, but then Bad Luck Fale got in there, and I guess he's still supporting this good guy stuff, so he kind of stopped him. Then out of nowhere, the Young Bucks just went ahead and gave a super kick to Jado. So then we set up for the finish here. The Young Bucks are going for the Melter driver, but when Nick was in midair going to go for the connect with it, out of nowhere came Tama Tonga with the gun stun. Then Sanada came in, locked Matt in the skull end. Evil hit Everything Is Evil on Tama Tonga, and then they hit the Magic Killer on Matt to get the 1-2-3. Actually, no, a moonsault from Sanada first, then the 1-2-3. Los Ingobernables regain the tag team titles. So they won the tag team titles here. I think they won them a little earlier too, so I think that means that they hold all the gold now, or at least some of it, not all of it. But yeah, a fun match, a wild match. Like I said, clearly the last we will be seeing of the Young Bucks in New Japan. The commentators, Kevin Kelly in particular, did mention, that they were starting their own wrestling promotion with Cody, and they also mentioned that in the next match, which was Cody defending the IWGP US Championship against Juice Robinson. Cody was out there wearing Jacksonville Jaguars colors for his gear, just kind of showing the connection and relationship that he has with the owner of that team, who is the one funding this Cody Rhodes Young Bucks ran wrestling promotion, AEW, All Elite Wrestling, which we will be hearing more news about, I'm sure, in the coming weeks, months, whatever. But yeah, so they still have some loose ends to tie up, and one of them being this US title match here. Brandy, she was out there trying to interfere. At one point behind the referee's back, she speared Juice Robinson and started slapping him and all that kind of stuff, some weak looking hits. But then the referee kicked her out, so she was gone. Both men did each other's finishers. At one point, Cody hit the pump friction on Juice. At one point, Juice hit Crossroads on Cody. But the finish came where Juice hit, Cody was going for the disaster kick. But while he was in midair, Juice caught him with the left hand of God. I think it's the same Falcon punch or hit or whatever that broke Kevin Owens' nose in his debut at an NXT TakeOver show a few years ago. So then he gets him up, hits him with pump friction. Instead of going immediately for the pin, he stares at him for a little bit and then hits him with it one more time, very impactful, and gets the win. So as quickly as Juice Robinson lost the championship, he wins it right back here in the rematch with Cody Rhodes. So that was kind of one of the final ones who kind of gives you the impression that all these guys are gone. I mean, it's not even the impression, they're definitely gone. So this one was just a little more definitive than the one that we saw later on, which we will definitely get to. But yeah, probably the weakest match of the show, but I think that was mainly because Cody still has the meniscus tear in his knee and he still needs surgery, so I assume that's why it was a little weaker. But yeah, still fine though. But yeah, a little weak compared to other things on the show. Something that was not weak was up next, the IWGP Junior Heavyweight Championship match. Kushida defending the championship against Taiji Ishimori. There was an interesting Kushida entrance. We saw a mini Kushida, a little kid with a big Kushida mask on, kind of like a mascot head, and then Doc Brown, the Japanese Doc Brown, who stood him up in a certain spot and then hit his big button or whatever, his remote control, and some steam and stuff rolled up, and then out came the real Kushida. Don Callis on commentary just went like, "Oh my god, they blew up the kid." So thought that was funny. But this match was no laughing matter. This was a crazy match, and it was a pretty decisive, definitive win for Ishimori in this match. He was looking pretty dominant in this one. It did not go anywhere near as long as I thought it would. It went pretty quickly. I think it was probably under or right at 10 minutes. There was one crazy move. Ishimori had Kushida kind of propped up on the ropes. He had him sitting in the ropes and had him sat right on the bottom rope. And Ishimori kind of goes back, Irish whips, and then kind of rolls through. And as he's sliding underneath the bottom rope, he grabs Kushida and snaps him back for a German suplex. I have not seen that move. I haven't seen a lot of Ishimori, so that is not a move I am used to seeing, but I thought that was really cool. But the finish came when Ishimori hit the Bloody Cross move, his finishing move, and got the win. So Ishimori, all jacked up as he is, he got the win. Like I said, a lot more 70-30, maybe 60-40 Ishimori to Kushida in this match. Kind of fuels the rumors of a potential jump over to WWE for Kushida. There was a talk not too long ago that Kushida might sign with WWE, go to 205 Live or something like that, which if he wants to do, that's fine. I probably wouldn't do that for him. I look at how they've handled people like Tozawa and Hideo Itami and all those guys, and even outside of 205 Live, look at what they've done with Nakamura and all that kind of stuff, which they've done a lot with him, but not a whole lot, which is not all their fault. He kind of takes some of the blame too, but either way, whatever he does, his decision. But a win like this kind of fuels that fire of what might be the future of Kushida. But Ishimori got the belt, so good for him. Then we got an interesting experience for me. I have watched these Wrestle Kingdom shows for the last 5 years, and I believe, if I'm not mistaken, this is the very first time that I have watched one of these shows and Okada was not involved, either challenging or defending the IWGP Heavyweight Championship. And it felt weird. It still feels weird, especially with the outcome of this match, but I think there's a larger story for it. But yeah, it was very weird. And of course, the match I'm talking about is the lone non-championship match on this show. Kazuchika Okada, taking on Jay Lethal. Oh my god. Did I say Jay Lethal? I'm sorry, let me pay this man respect. Jay White. Switchblade Jay White taking on Okada. A match that was make or break for Jay White, in my opinion. It was either you book this match and make this man like a star, or he's a bust. And all the stuff that they've done with him, having him beat down Okada, having Gato, Okada's longtime manager, turn on Okada and joining Jay White, become the leader of the Bullet Club. It's just no one's going to be able to believe it unless this match delivers, especially for Jay White, and makes him like a star. And I think they did that. Big pop for Okada with this crowd. One, they love him, but also because it was the classic Rainmaker entrance. He had the rope, had the dollar bills dropping, and then when he took off the robe, he revealed he was wearing trunks and no longer pants. So no balloons in sight, which I like the balloons, but yeah, it was classic Rainmaker. He had to revert back to classic Rainmaker Okada to take on Jay White on this big stage, and it still wasn't enough. As you could guess, Gato did try to interfere a few times in this match. There was one point when Jay was up on the top turnbuckle and Okada drop kicked him off of it onto the outside. Then Gato tried to interfere, but Okada kind of, hit him a little bit and launched him over the guardrail alongside Jay White, and he hit a dive over the guardrail onto both men, so he got a little bit of revenge on Gato there. There was one point when Gato was basically providing a distraction for the referee, and that's when Jay White brought in a steel chair, tried to use it on Okada, but Okada kind of ducked it and kind of pushed Jay White into Gato, who was up on the ring apron, and kind of knocked him off of it. So I thought that was really cool. There was a Blade Runner attempt from Jay White. Okada managed to slip through it, went for the Rainmaker, but Jay White kind of avoided it and then got hit with a drop kick instead. So thought that was really cool. There was a part where there was just a bunch of crazy counters back and forth, which kind of led to a spinning Rainmaker, but instead of getting the pin there, Okada got him back up, went for a second Rainmaker, but when doing so, he got countered and reversed into a Blade Runner from Jay White. Jay White gets the 1-2-3, clean, decisive victory for Jay White over Okada. The man who, for over 500 days, held the IWGP Heavyweight Championship just a year ago. And here he is on their biggest show, Wrestle Kingdom 13, and he's here losing clean as a sheet to Jay White. So that shows you how much faith, how much invested they are and Jay White, and yeah, he made a believer out of me. I've started to dig his character from what I've seen of it. You know, seeing him at that top level, that main event level, has been a bit of a challenge for me. But this match kind of won me over. I'm gonna be honest with you. He looked like a star, and the whole story here that Okada got screwed over. He's had a string of big losses and all that kind of stuff. He's lost multiple times to Jay White. He got pinned by Jay White in the G1 Climax last year, and I think a bunch of different tag team matches leading up to this show. He was on the losing team against Jay White's team, so he had to bust out the classic Rainmaker stuff, and it still wasn't enough. Even with a little interference from Gato here and there, it was still a clean win for Jay White over Okada here. And to me, I saw a few people saying it on Twitter, and I will echo their sentiments because I already had the same ones. I think the direction here is pretty obvious. At some point this year, Jay White wins the IWGP Heavyweight Championship from the current champion, of course. That would be Hiroshi Tanahashi. He wins the championship at some point this year. You have Okada win the G1 Climax, and then you come back to this match a year from now, January 4th in 2020, Wrestle Kingdom 14. Okada challenges Jay White for the IWGP Heavyweight Championship, and he gets the big win there. So keep Okada on this downward spiral until he's finally put in the G1 Climax, where maybe he starts out a little rough there too, but ultimately he wins it and gets the belt back next year. Now I know it'd be tough. 2 years in a row, you have the G1 winner being Tanahashi, then Okada, and 2 years in a row you have the champion be Tanahashi, then Okada. I know those are two guys they go back to over and over again, but I think the story makes sense, so I would like to see it. But yeah, great star-making performance for Jay White here. Speaking of star-making performances, that's what we basically saw up next. Chris Jericho and Tetsuya Naito for the IWGP Intercontinental Championship. No disqualification was made the previous day in their contract signing. Naito was a lot more serious in this match than he was in their first one at the Dominion show last year in June. Much like in that one, it was instead here that Naito was the one to attack Chris Jericho from behind before the match started, and then the bell just kind of rang. They were fighting around ringside. They fought up to the entrance ramp, and Naito got Jericho up, hit him with a pile driver. It is always interesting seeing that move, since we never see it, especially in WWE. We never see it, so it's always fascinating to see that move whenever it's busted out. So Naito's all over Jericho. He's just beating his ass down all over ringside, and they get back over. Jericho's on the outside. Naito is in the ring. He goes for his little rope thing where he fakes like he's gonna go through it, but then he goes back and does his tranquilo pose. But this time, when he went for the pose, he kind of turned back around, went for an actual dive, but Jericho was ready for him and caught him with a kendo stick shot right to the head. So from that moment on, Jericho kind of took control, was beating him down with the kendo stick, beating him up around ringside. They got over by the announce table, and Jericho stood him up. They were standing right there, and he went down and gave him a spike DDT right on the announce table, just right slap on it. Just completely flipped him upside down. He was standing, Naito was on his feet, and he just kind of flipped right on top of his head, right onto the table. I think it was Kevin Kelly who pointed out later on that his head actually put a hole into the table. So very, very brutal stuff. There was some more brutal stuff to come in the match. Jericho was kind of taking control of most of it. At one point, Naito tried to go for the Destino, but it got countered into the walls of Jericho. He had it locked in, and Naito was desperately trying to escape it, and he eventually went over to a kendo stick and started to use it to break the hold. Then he started to beat down Jericho with it. Started to swing away on Jericho with it. At one point, a welt formed on Jericho's torso, and he was getting shit beat out of him with it. Naito went for one big final swing with it, but then Jericho kind of blocked it, hit him with a code breaker. Only good for a near fall, though. Then Jericho went to the outside, got a whole bunch of, I hesitate to call them steel chairs, but a bunch of chairs that were under the ring. I think he got about 8 of them, and got back in the ring. He was going for a power bomb on Naito, but Naito reversed it into a DDT. Naito hit his own code breaker on Chris Jericho, which was also only good for a 2 count. At one point, he gave Jericho a German suplex on the steel chairs. He was going for the Destino, but it got blocked. Jericho shoved the referee out of the way, gave him a low blow, hit him with the code breaker, very reminiscent of the finish to their Dominion match. But this time, Naito kicked out of it. Then Jericho, desperate as all hell, went to the outside, got the championship belt, was gearing up to use it on Naito, but then Naito flapjacked him pretty much into the exposed corner that he exposed early on in the match. Then he hit the Destino, only good for a 2 count. Very good near fall. I thought for a second, holy shit, is Chris Jericho actually going to win? This man who has had a Brock Lesnar run with this championship in New Japan, he's about to win. Naito's about to lose again, back-to-back years in a big match. But no, that's not what happened. Jericho's still down. Naito is the first to get back up, and he sees the championship belt, goes over, picks it up, shoves it right into the face of Jericho, hits him with another Destino to get the big win. So Naito is once again IWGP Intercontinental Champion. He afterwards kind of took down Red Shoes, the referee, and just kind of beating him up. And Naito is famous for disrespecting the championship belt. In fact, one of the previous times he held it, he just completely destroyed it to the point where they had to completely remodel it and pay for a brand new belt. So he usually just kind of throws it around and ignores it and all that kind of stuff. But here, he actually took it when it was given to him. Red Shoe's son, who was one of the young boys around ringside, he handed it to him, and he actually took it with him when he left. So Naito shows that, in fact, he does care about the belt, at least for now, until later on when we see him throwing it up and around and all that kind of stuff. But at least here, after beating Jericho, he pretended like he cared about it. So that's something, I guess. But yeah, this was a great match. Comparing it to the one that Jericho had with Kenny Omega last year, it's tough. I would probably say the Omega match was a little better, just a little bit, but this was right up there with him. If this wasn't the best match on the show for you, this was probably second. I mean, for me, it was probably the second best match behind the main event, and just a smidge above the opener. But and which the opener was ahead of the Okada Jay White match. But all great, and yeah, this was a lot of fun to watch. Speaking of that main event, that's up next. Kenny Omega defending the IWGP Heavyweight Championship against Hiroshi Tanahashi, the G1 Climax winner. The whole story here is that Tanahashi does not approve of Kenny Omega and his new ways and what New Japan has become under his watch, and Kenny Omega just looks at Tanahashi like he's an old relic of the past who needs to go away. That same thought process can be said for a lot of guys in WWE right now. But that story was being told with these two, and it worked. And these two had an incredible match because of it. There was a lot of really cool stuff in this match. Early on, it was the kind of filling out process. Things didn't really pick up for me until a little bit later on when they were on the outside, and Omega body slammed Tanahashi over the guardrail onto a table over by the announcers. Didn't put him through it, but it was like right onto it. And then Omega, of course, because he has to, hit a moonsault off of the rail onto Tanahashi. So I thought that was really cool. There was one spot that was pretty scary. Of course, Omega does this whole, Terminator Rise thing. They do the beating on the mat, and he does his big dive over the top rope. He did the dive, but the landing was not great. His leg caught Tanahashi around the head, which looked brutal by itself, but Omega kind of landed splat on the floor entranceway area, and the thud just didn't sound right. Omega, a little bit later on, went for his "you cannot escape this" move, where he does the rolling senton into the moonsault. Got the rolling senton, but when he went up for the moonsault, he kind of hesitated a little bit because of his leg. He was selling a leg injury from a corkscrew from Tanahashi earlier, but he already had a leg injury. But he went for it anyway, but Tanahashi got back up and hit a really nasty corkscrew, dragon screw, I should say, and kind of hyperextended Omega's leg, and that kind of bothered him for the rest of the match. At one point, Tanahashi hit a Styles Clash on Kenny Omega, a move that Kenny Omega has been using for the past few years. Of course, that belongs to former Bullet Club member AJ Styles. Then he went up for the high fly flow, but he got blocked with Omega's knees. At one point, Kenny went for the V-trigger, but Tanahashi moved, and he ended up giving a V-trigger to the corner, led to another dragon screw and a sling blade on the apron. Tanahashi had Omega laid out on a table on the outside. I think it was Omega who was the one who set the table up a little earlier. And Tanahashi had Omega laid out on the table. He went up top, dove off to the outside, went for the high fly flow, but Omega rolled out of the way, so Tanahashi crashed and burned right through the table. At one point, Omega hit like three different power bombs on like back to back in a row on Tanahashi, and Tanahashi kicked out of all of them. So that looked brutal. Omega, he hit his own sling blade on Tanahashi and a high fly flow, but Tanahashi kicked out at one, but he went right down with a V trigger just a little bit later. There was a reverse Rana on Tanahashi that also led to another V trigger. He got him up for the one-winged angel, but then Tanahashi hit his own reverse Rana, and his looked pretty brutal because it looked like he really did spike Kenny Omega's head right into the mat. I don't know what it is with these New Japan guys of spiking each other's heads in the mat or into things in general, but it did not look good. He hit a standing high fly flow, like Omega was standing up, so he kind of a cross-body version of the high fly flow. Then he went for a normal one, but only good for a 2 count. Omega hit a reverse suplex off the top rope and kind of just flipped him over, Tanahashi that is, and kind of had him land face first and front first on the mat. Hit the V trigger and was about to get him up for the one-winged angel, but he got reversed. He just kind of slammed Omega onto the mat, hit another sling blade and the high fly flow one more time to get the win. Tanahashi wins his 8th IWGP Heavyweight Championship in the main event against Kenny Omega. Like I said, my words don't do it justice. This was an incredible match. Tanahashi gets the big win, his road to redemption after a period of time there where he was just suffering so many losses. He had his one last shot of redemption, working his way up, got through the G1, and then got his opportunity here to face Kenny Omega for the championship, and he won. It's not even with all the rumors of Kenny Omega and all that kind of stuff, I still expected him to win. So him losing here was a little bit shocking, but it was still cool. Like I said, an incredible match. Of course, Tanahashi did his whole air guitar and talking to the fans and all that kind of stuff thing afterwards. But yeah, and I assume this is probably the last we will see of Kenny Omega in New Japan. Of course, there's still the New Year's Dash show tomorrow as of this recording, and his contract does not expire until the 31st. Whereas the Bucks and Cody and Hangman Page and all them, I think they're contracts expire within the next few days, if I'm not mistaken. But Omega's contract ends on the 31st of this month, January. And he apparently, at least according to reports, got offered a big money deal from WWE, like in the millions. And if there was ever a time for him to go over there right now, with ratings being low as they are and needing fresh faces, and more importantly than anything else, Roman Reigns unfortunately being down with sickness, but him being gone, a top star is needed, and Kenny Omega could definitely fill that role very nicely, in my opinion. But if he's not sticking around with New Japan, I don't see him not going with his buddies over to this all elite wrestling thing. So, I mean, we'll see. Time will tell. He has until the end of the month, January 31st. We'll definitely know by then. But yeah, it's a lot of uncertainty with Kenny Omega, less so with Cody Rhodes and the Young Bucks and Hangman Page, of course. Poor Marty Scurll is all by his lonesome, but he'll be alright. And of course, this all elite wrestling thing has just been the talk of the town recently. Britt Baker has already been an official woman signed. There's talk of many WWE talents, some popular names who contracts may be coming up, and that just depends on who you know whose contracts are coming up soon. There's talk that they might leave and jump over to AEW. We'll see. We don't know what it fully is, but we do know it's going to make for some exciting wrestling this year. And if they put on shows like this, it will be a great year. But as always, New Japan delivers with the Wrestle Kingdom show. We'll see what the fallout will be on their New Year's Dash show just a few hours from now. So that's it for me. Happy New Year, everyone, and I look forward to talking to all of you for the rest of this year. Till then, take care.